Our Silver Tempest Sword and Shield Pokemon trading card game set is due out November 11th. It will be the last set in the Sword and Shield block before the Pokemon trading card game moves on to the Scarlet and Violet set. There might be one special set, okay? Maybe after Silver Tempest, but it's going to be like one of our last Sword and Shield sets. I, for one, am very excited that we have come to the end of the Sword and Shield block, and I am very excited for what Scarlet and Violet is going to bring to the Pokemon trading card game. So in this video, I am going to be reviewing the cards from Japan's Incandescent Arcana and Paradigm Trigger sets, both of which will be featured in our upcoming Silver Tempest set. Silver Tempest will also include any cards that were cut from our Lost Origin sets. First up, Radiant Alakazam is an awesome looking Pokemon card. Just experience this Radiant Alakazam. 2 spoons! Love it. It's always a treat to get an Alakazam card since the Pokemon Company stopped printing Abra and Kadabra cards a long time ago. So the only way that we get Alakazam cards is with special cards like this Radiant Alakazam, since Abra and Kadabra do not need to be printed. Radiant Alakazam has got the Spoonful of Pain ability, which reads, once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another one of their Pokemon. And then its attack, Mind Ruler, does 20 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. The attack isn't particularly strong. It's okay. If your opponent has 10 cards in their hand, you're going to be doing 200 damage. But the ability is neat, allowing you to move damage counters on your opponent's side of the board, and it being a basic Pokemon means it's really easy to get into play. I think compared directly to Radiant Pokemon that place damage on your opponent's board, like Radiant Blastoise, I do prefer cards like Radiant Blastoise that actually help you to proactively deal damage rather than just moving it around. I have said in the past, why move damage counters when you could just put the damage counters you want in the right place the first time? That's kind of unfair to Radiant Alakazam, as Radiant Alakazam can move damage counters from big attacks over onto smaller Pokemon, but I think the sentiment still holds true for me. If you want to move damage counters around, why don't you just put them in the right place the first time? You know I love Kamiya's artwork. I'm always gushing about it, and you can tell a card is by Kamiya as soon as you see it. Love this Jinx. It's got an ability, Capricious Lips. If this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attack, they don't take any prize cards for that knockout. So it can help buy time against Pokemon V heavy decks. It's also got an attack. Psy damage does 10 damage plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. Jinx is an interesting card. Its attack can be used for 2 colorless energy. It could be used to finish off Pokemon V for just a double turbo energy or a twin energy if they've already been softened up by another Pokemon. And then the fact that they don't give up a prize card in return is pretty cool. But all in all, I do think that Jinx is a little bit underpowered and just coming out at the wrong time, since we're about to dive into the Scarlet and Violet era of the Pokemon TCG. Pokemon V are, I think, going to be going away, and Pokemon EX are going to be replacing them, which makes abilities like Capricious Lips less valuable in the long run. Mcgear Navi is not that good. It's got the Gear Throw attack for 1 metal energy that does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and the Special Laser attack for 2 metal and a colorless does 100 damage plus 120 more damage if this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it. 220 damage for 3 energy. Any basic metal Pokemon is always just going to get compared to Zacian V, which is just better than Mcgear Navi. So, Mcgear Navi, just a bulk Pokemon V. We got a new supporter card for Isode Girl, which reads, search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. You may switch that Pokemon with your active Pokemon. So it's a supporter card that searches out a basic Pokemon and then puts it into the active spot. I don't think that this is necessarily the best supporter card, but it could have some sort of niche usefulness. I, for one, pretty much won't play supporter cards that have effects that can be replicated with item cards, right? Because why would you? Freesode Girl can be replicated with 2 item cards, Switch and Quick Ball. So why would I waste my supporter for turn doing something that I could do with just 2 item cards? I'd rather play a stronger draw supporter that allows me to see more cards and refresh my hand, and that might be useful throughout the game, whereas Freesode Girl probably is going to be a card that has very limited uses. So I don't see this card being very good, but still an interesting effect. New supporter alerts, we've got Wallace, which allows you to draw 3 cards, and your opponent can draw 1 card. If they do, you get to draw 1 more card. This is okay. Letting your opponent draw cards is usually not what you want to do, but if you're playing a deck that doesn't care what your opponent is doing, and you just need to draw cards off the top of your deck, then Wallace could fill that niche. The new Mawile V and Mawile VStar are in Japan's Incandescent Arcana. Mawile VStar has the Sudden Chomper attack for 2 colorless energy. It reads, if this Pokemon was on your bench this turn, this attack does 90 damage plus 90 more damage. So kind of like Rapid Strike Urshifu VMax's attack that does damage. Man, what is the name of that attack? Kind of like Rapid Strike Urshifu VMax's Gale Thrust attack, which does more damage if it moved from the bench to the active. Mawile VStar does 180 damage for 2 colorless energy if it moved from the bench, which isn't that much damage. With the Choice Belt, you're only doing 210 damage. Mawile VStar has 260 hit points, which is kind of on the low end for Pokemon VStar. And then its VStar Power Star Rondo reads, you may use this ability during your turn. If this Pokemon is on your bench, you can switch it with your active Pokemon, then switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. So it allows you to not only move Mawile from the bench to the active, which then activates its Sudden Chomper damage boost, but it also acts as a Boss's Orders ability, which allows you to gust up one of your opponent's benched Pokemon into the active spot. But the thing is that Sudden Chomper isn't even doing that much damage, so even though you get to target down one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, Mawile VStar can't really do that much damage, and then will also more than likely get one-hit KO'd by just about anything in return. So unfortunately, Mawile VStar is just not that good, even though its VStar ability, Star Rondo, is pretty strong. Maybe it could be played as a support Pokemon for its VStar power in a particular deck that really wants this ability, and maybe its attack will just be there in case you need to attack with an extra Pokemon. But I don't see Mawile VStar being the centerpiece of its own deck. Man, bro, 260 HP. I'm really excited that the Pokemon Company is not going the way of Cosmic Eclipse with this last Sword and Shield set. I'm really excited that they're not just printing the most broken Pokemon V and Pokemon V-Star ever as like Sword and Shield's final set. These Pokemon so far all seem relatively tame and like they're not going to impact the game for years and years to come, which is going to pave the way for a new kind of power level adjustment with the start of the Scarlet and Violet set. So I'm really excited that these Pokemon V-Star are not just like through the roof, mind-bogglingly powerful. I'm actually really excited to see this. There's a new Kyogre card that has a very powerful spread attack. This Kyogre has 140 hit points, which is great HP for a single prize Pokemon that's also a basic Pokemon. Its first attack, Call the Heaving Sea, helps to power up Kyogre for 1 colorless energy. You get to search your deck for a water energy card and attach it to this Pokemon. Then its dynamic wave attack for 3 water and a colorless energy does 180 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and then you return 3 energy attached to this Pokemon to your hand. This card seems phenomenal in Gym Leader Challenge format. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Gym Leader Challenge format, it is by far my favorite way to play Pokemon cards. It's a custom Pokemon trading card game format that's really been taken off. It's featured at regional championships in the form of side events, international championships, the world championships. The Pokemon Company published it in their alternate format handbook. Gym Leader Challenge is a great time. If you want to learn more about Gym Leader Challenge, make sure to check it out at gymleaderchallenge.com. But this card is really good in Gym Leader Challenge format, where you can't play Pokemon V, Pokemon GX, or any Pokemon with a rule box, because dealing 180 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon is really good, as it knocks out just about every Pokemon in Gym Leader Challenge format. There are very few Pokemon that don't have a rule box that have more than 180 hit points. But this Kyogre also has a downside, because it has to return 3 energy from the Kyogre to your hand, which means that if you have an energy accelerator in play, like Frostmoth or Blastoise, to accelerate the extra water energy to your Kyogre, and then you use Kyogre's attack to deal 180 damage to maybe one of your opponent's support Pokemon, your opponent could punish your board state by gusting up your energy accelerator, like Frostmoth, and knocking it out, which then would leave your board vulnerable, because you wouldn't be able to necessarily respond with another attack the following turn, since you had to return those water energy to your hand. On the flip side, Kyogre's returning the water energy thing could be seen as a positive, because it helps to conserve water energy rather than send them to the discard when Kyogre gets knocked out. So it's a double-edged sword. It can be a detriment, but it also can be a good thing for conserving resources. This Kyogre is definitely a beast, though, with 140 hit points, just a really strong card, and I expected to see some play in Gym Leader Challenge. New special energy as well, Vguard Energy, which reads, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides 1 colorless energy. The Pokemon card this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V. So it's a nice damage buffer from Pokemon V, but like I said, this is going to be the last Sword and Shield set, which means that Pokemon V are not going to be a thing, really, in Scarlet and Violet. So Vguard Energy's usefulness will become instantly diluted as we start introducing Pokemon EX into the formats. I think this card is pretty good. It can help fix defensive math. It could be played with Hisuian VStar to decrease damage even further after its Iron Rollout attack. We'll see what the future holds for Vguard Energy. Capture Aroma is a new item card that involves a coin flip. You flip a coin. If heads, you search your deck for an evolved Pokemon. If tails, you search your deck for a basic Pokemon. So no matter what, you're getting a Pokemon from your deck and putting it into your hand. But you have to flip correctly in order to get the Pokemon that you want. This card could be played in Gym Leader Challenge format. Since GLC is a singleton format, you can't just play 4 copies of Ultra Ball or 4 copies of Quick Ball, so sometimes you have to get creative with the cards that you choose to play. It is nice that it guarantees that it gets you something. I like playing Timer Ball, which you flip 2 coins and get an evolved Pokemon from your deck for each heads. Some players loathe Timer Ball and would probably prefer a card like Capture Aroma, which is guaranteed to get you at least something. I'm not sure that I love Capture Aroma, since its effect is not guaranteed. You know, if you need a basic Pokemon on the first turn of the game and you flip heads and have to go get an evolved Pokemon instead, it can really mess up your game plan. So I'm not exactly sure about Capture Aroma, but it is an interesting card. and maybe it sees play, especially after Quick Ball rotates out of Standard. Emergency Jelly is a tool card that reads, at the end of either player's turn, if the Pokemon this card is attached to has any damage counters on it and has 30 HP or less remaining, heal 120 damage from that Pokemon and discard this card. This tool card is really funny when combined with Pokemon that have the Sturdy ability. Why do I have bra advertisements here? Dang it, dude, this is crazy. Come on, man. I'm trying to do a video over here, bro. This Donphan from Lost Thunder has the Sturdy ability, which reads, if this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, this Pokemon is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10, right? So what's really funny is that if you put the Emergency Jelly onto Donphan and your opponent tries to knock it out, its remaining hit points will become 10, and then the Emergency Jelly will completely heal it, and then your opponent will have to try and knock it out again. So Emergency Jelly is really cool with a card like Donphan. This combination could be used in Gym Leader Challenge format to troll your opponent and attack with Donphan consecutive turns, which is pretty good since Donphan has the Rolling Spin attack, which does 70 more damage the following turn. So again, I don't think that Emergency Jelly will be any good unless it's paired with a card kind of like Donphan from Lost Thunder. Radiant Serena has the Elegant Healing ability, which reads, once during your turn, you may heal 20 damage from all of your Pokemon. This is a really strong ability for tank and heal style decks, but it does compete for its spot with Radiant Gardevoir, which just prevents 20 damage from your opponent's Pokemon V. I think that some tank and heal decks will prefer Radiant Serena, while others will prefer Radiant Gardevoir, but it is worth noting that as the format starts to introduce Pokemon EX into the fold, that cards like Radiant Serena, which are kind of good all the time, will become stronger, and Pokemon that are more nuanced, like Radiant Gardevoir, which only prevents damage from Pokemon V, will become less useful. So I do like Radiant Serena as a card, and I think this ability is quite strong. Superior VStar and Superior V also coming out in our Silver Tempest set. Superior VStar has the Royal Tornado attack for a grass and 2 colorless energy. It does 190 damage, and you can move any amount of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. 190 damage is the correct amount of damage for an attack to do, since it can ramp up to 220 damage with the addition of a Choice Belt, which is conveniently enough to knock out all Pokemon V. You really want to hit that 220 damage benchmark. It's really tough when a Pokemon V-Star cannot one-hit KO opposing Pokemon V. Now, this is an interesting attack since it allows you to move your energy anywhere you want on the board. It could allow Superior V-Star to inhabit this kind of tank and heal space where maybe you use Cheryl to heal your superiors after you attack and move all of the energy elsewhere on your board. Again, this would require that your opponent kind of play into that strategy and not one-hit KO your Superior V-Star. It kind of reminds me of Gardevoir and Sylveon Tag Team GX's attack, which also moved energy around and helped you to heal the Gardevoir and Sylveon Tag Team GX. The Superior also has free retreats, which is really cool for a tank and heal style deck, since you can attack with the Superior V-Star, move the energy to a different Pokemon, and then easily pivot to a new Pokemon. Its V-Star power is the Coiling Star attack for 1 grass energy. It does 60 damage for each energy attached to this Pokemon. Then you switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. So if you have 5 energy attached to your Superior V-Star, you can do 300 damage, and then you get to switch the Superior to your bench. hit and run attacks are always good, since you can promote a Pokemon that maybe you don't mind getting knocked out, and it allows you to preserve your energy in a safe space on your bench. So this Superior V-Star definitely has a cohesive set of attacks. They both involve preserving energy and playing defensively. So a cool card. Will it be the best card? Probably not, but it's at least neat. HoOh V has the ability Rebirth Flames, which reads once during your turn. If this card is in your discard pile, you may put this card onto your bench. If you do, attach up to 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon. That's incredible! But if you use this ability, your turn ends. Its attack, Rainbow Burn, for 4 colorless energy, does 100 damage plus 30 more damage for each type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. HoOh V has a substantial 230 hit points and a retreat cost of 2. Now, this kind of ability is not new on HoOh cards. I am immediately reminded of HoOh EX from Dragons Exalted with the Rebirth ability, which allows you to flip a coin if HoOh EX is in your discard pile. If heads, you can put this Pokemon onto your bench and attach up to 3 different types of basic energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon. In my mind, HoOh EX is simply the better card, since you can use it and not end your turn. You do have to flip a coin, but if you get multiple HoOh EX into the discard pile, you get to flip multiple coins during your turn to try and bring those energy into play. HoOh EX also had the Rainbow Burn attack, which does 20 damage plus 20 more damage for each different type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. And HoOh EX was printed 10 years ago. So HoOh V has a nice power bump as far as its attack goes, with 4 different types of energy attached to HoOh. You're doing 220 damage, which is a respectable attack, but ending your turn is quite the drawback, as you would have to have a turn that your opponent could gust up HoOh V and knock it out before you actually get to do anything with it. You could pair HoOh V with Diancie, which makes it so your opponent can't use any supporter cards to gust up a benched Pokemon, but still, ending your turn severely impacts your tempo in a game of Pokemon cards. It is quite the drawback, and I do still prefer HoOh EX's Rebirth ability to this new HoOh V's Rebirth Flames. There's an incredible new Mewtwo Hollow rare card coming out that I am loving in Gym Leader Challenge format. This Mewtwo's got some awesome artwork. Its first attack, Psy Pump, for a colorless energy, allows you to attach up to 2 psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. And then Limit Break for 2 psychic and a colorless energy does 90 damage plus 90 more damage if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. This card is going to be an all-star in Gym Leader Challenge format. Since it's a single prize format, your opponent's only really taking 1 prize card at a time, and that means that for half of the game, Mewtwo is going to be able to deal 180 damage for just 3 energy. With a Dimension Valley Stadium in play, you could use Mewtwo's attack for just 2 psychic energy. And there are lots of ways in Gym Leader Challenge formats to accelerate psychic energy into play. So I think that this Mewtwo is fantastic. Not only is it good at the end of the game, capable of one-hit KOing even the largest Pokemon in GLC, it's also good as a starter, since its first attack can accelerate energy from your discard pile to your bench Pokemon and help power up other attackers for the game. So a really good, well-rounded card. Sometimes it feels like Pokemon cards are printed directly for Gym Leader Challenge formats. Zamazunta, this card is an absolute beast. It's got 130 HP, an incredible ability, and an even better attack. Its ability, Metal Shield, reads if this Pokemon has any energy attached to it, it takes 30 less damage from attacks. Metal type decks are defensive by nature with tool cards like Metal Frying Pan and Metal Goggles and Pod Helmet. There are a lot of options for tanking hits with your metal type deck, and Zamazunta's Metal Shield ability plays into that strategy perfectly. With a tool card like Metal Frying Pan attached to your Zamazunta, it's going to be taking minus 60 damage from attacks. Its revenge attack is really good. For 2 metal and a colorless energy, it does 100 damage, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, it does 120 more damage. So 220 damage, that is enough damage to knock out just about anything that Gym Leader Challenge has to offer. So Zamazunta is right up there with the strongest attackers in the format, and it's a great defensive card. I expect really good things from this Zamazunta in GLC. The thing about doing like set reviews is I kind of have to do them live, right? Because, bro, there's only 8 hours in a day. I want to stream, but then I also want to do a set review. So we're doing it live, baby. We're always going to do it live. Alolan Vulpix VStar is, wow. I mean, just 240 hit points. Vulpix, man. That's not enough. Most Pokemon V-Star are rocking like 280. Even Mawile's got 260. 240? Sheesh. That's not a lot. Alolan Vulpix V-Star has the Snow Mirage attack for a water and 2 colorless energy. It does 160 damage, and this attack's damage is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active, and next turn, you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon from Pokemon with abilities. Unfortunately, I think this attack is pretty nuanced and not worth the fact that Alolan Vulpix V-Star only has 240 HP. If your opponent's deck has any attackers that don't have abilities, they're going to easily dispose of Alolan Vulpix V-Star, and Alolan Vulpix V-Star is only doing 160 damage at a time. Its V-Star power is the Silver Snow Star attack, which is a free attack that does 70 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon V. So if your opponent has 4 Pokemon V in play, then you get to do 280 damage. So this is a pretty situational attack, which is only going to be good if your opponent plays into it. So I'm not a huge fan of Alolan Vulpix V-Star, but it is undeniably cute. Reshiram V. I always thought, all right, do you guys like Reshiram? I always think this Reshiram, some Reshiram artwork is beautiful. Some Reshiram artwork is ugly. I'm not super into this Reshiram card. It looks like a toy. It looks like a 3D model of, like, you know, sometimes things are hit and miss. Reshiram V has 220 hit points and 2 attacks. Its first attack for 1 fire energy, Gleaming Wings, allows you to attach up to 2 basic energy from your deck to your Pokemon in play, then shuffle your deck. And then White Blaze for 2 fire and a colorless energy does 200 damage, and then you flip a coin. If tails, this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. This is a bulk Pokemon V, unfortunately. Radiant Jirachi. I opened like 7 boxes of this set and didn't pull a single Radiant Jirachi, but it's okay. I'm not mad about it. Radiant Jirachi has 90 hit points, an ability, and an attack. Its ability, Pass a Wish, reads if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand. Its attack, Stellar Doom, for 2 colorless energy, requires that you flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. So Radiant Jirachi can one-hit KO anything if you flip 2 heads. This is an interesting card, because you could just high roll a big knockout on a Pokemon VMax or something, but again, you do have to high roll that knockout as you need to flip 2 heads. Even with a card like Glimwood Tangle in play, you have to get a little lucky in order to take a knockout with Stellar Doom. and your opponent has to play into your strategy by knocking out Radiant Jirachi in order for the Pass-a-Wish ability to be effective. I don't think that Radiant Jirachi is going to be a card that a lot of decks choose to use their Radiant Pokemon slot on, but it is a cute card that is pretty interesting in limited formats, right? So if you're playing a pre-release formats, Radiant Jirachi could be extremely good, since it can allow you to set up your deck with its Pass-a-Wish ability. If you're playing a cube format, Radiant Jirachi could be good, but outside of that, Radiant Jirachi is probably not going to have a lot of life. Serena is a new supporter card that has a pick one of two option. It's always interesting when a supporter card can do two different things, and Serena is a really cool card because not only does it have the option to draw cards, it can also gust Pokemon on your opponent's bench. The supporter reads, choose one, discard up to 3 cards from your hand. If you discarded any cards in this way, draw until you have 5 cards in hand. Or switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon V with their active Pokemon. So in some decks, Serena is just going to be a better boss's orders until Pokemon EX start to see play, right? Because some decks only really care to gust up Pokemon V anyways. I mean, in current standard format, if you're using boss's orders, odds are it is on a Pokemon V. I mean, I'm willing to say like 80% of boss's orders targets are Pokemon V right now. So some decks will be completely content with playing Serena and only being able to gust Pokemon V, and then having the added draw option of filling your hand to 5 cards. Serena can also help to get cards into your discard pile if your deck plays out of the discard pile. So I really like Serena as a supporter card, but it is being released at the tail end of the Sword and Shield block. So I think Serena's usefulness will be at a peak during this time between Silver Tempest and Scarlet and Violet. But as more and more Pokemon EX start to come into standard, Serena's usefulness will decrease over time. There's a new Gardevoir and Curlia coming out, which I'm really excited about for Gym Leader Challenge formats. Gardevoir and Curlia both have the trade ability, which is translated as refining here, which allows you to discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards. Gardevoir's attack, Magical Shot, does 120 damage, which is decent in GLC for a Psychic and Colorless Energy. But Curlia is the real star of this evolution line. And the reason for that is that this is now the new optimal Curlia in Gym Leader Challenge format. Gym Leader Challenge format is a singleton format, so you can only play one of each card in your deck except for basic energy. So in order to get Gardevoir into play, you have to evolve up from Ralts to Curlia and then into Gardevoir. And there are a lot of good Gardevoir and Gallade cards to choose from, so many that this Gardevoir is probably not the optimal Gardevoir, though it's not bad. There are other better Gardevoirs to choose from, but there are no better Curlia to choose from. This is a fantastic addition to the pool of Psychic-type cards in Gym Leader Challenge formats, and I think that this Curlia is going to be a staple in Psychic-type decks. Drawing 2 cards is very strong, and Curlia evolves into some really good Pokemon. Curlia is so good that this Curlia would see play even if Curlia did not evolve into Gallade or Gardevoir. So I think that this card is going to be a mainstay in Psychic decks. This is one of the reasons why I love Gym Leader Challenge so much, because it makes cards more interesting. Cards like Curlia and Gardevoir and this Meowstic, which won't be relevant in standard formats, are going to make a huge impact in Gym Leader Challenge. Meowstic has the Beckoning Ears ability, which reads, when you play this Pokemon from your hand, to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 supporter cards and put them into your hand. This is a strong ability as it allows you to increase the consistency of your deck. Searching out supporter cards is always good, especially since Gym Leader Challenge is a singleton format. You get to hand select just the right supporter for just the right occasion. This Klinklang is also extremely good in Gym Leader Challenge format. Incandescent Arcana was an absolutely bananas set for Gym Leader Challenge format. Klinklang has the 3rd gear ability, which reads, when you play this Pokemon from your hand, to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. This is really powerful when combined with the new Zamazunta, which has that revenge attack, which can do 220 damage for 3 energy. Most Metal-type decks up until now have been playing Bronzong to accelerate energy from the discard pile into play. Metal-type decks also have access to Magnezone, which can rain infinite Metal-type energy from your hand onto your board. But I actually really like Klinklang, since Klinklang is not only an energy accelerator, but also a great attacker. Its Power Beam attack does 130 damage for a Metal and 2 colorless energy. 130 damage is the magic number in Gym Leader Challenge format, as a lot of the most popular basic attackers have about 130 hit points. And I also really like that Klinklang searches the energy out of your deck and puts them directly into play. With a card like Magnezone, you have to draw into those metal energy in order to accelerate them. So I think that Klinklang will certainly carve out a space for itself in Metal-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. I think this Wailmer could be the optimal Wailmer as well. It's got 120 HP, making it the fattest Wailmer alive. It's pretty dope. Evolves into Wailord, and there are some really gnarly Wailords that are coming out. Our Silver Tempest set will feature cards from both Incandescent Arcana and Paradigm Trigger. Incandescent Arcana has a lot of cards in it that are really good for Gym Leader Challenge formats, but the Pokemon V in this set were overall pretty weak, in my opinion. I think that Paradigm Trigger has the strongest Pokemon V that are going to be featured in our Silver Tempest sets. The Pokemon Company loves Oranguru. It seems like Oranguru always gets busted cards, and this is a really neat effect on this attack. Monkey Do for 1 colorless energy. You get to choose a supporter in your opponent's discard pile and use that supporter's effect as the effect of this attack. That is limited in that you can't control which supporter cards are in your opponent's discard pile, but it can allow you to play 2 supporter cards in a turn effectively, since you're going to use your own supporter, and then Monkey Do can allow you to copy one of your opponent's supporters. What's awkward about this is that if you're playing against a deck like Palkia that only plays Irida as its supporter card, and you're not playing a water deck, then Monkey Do is going to be pretty useless. I do think that this kind of attack is cool in limited formats like cube format or pre-release format, and is going to be less useful in standard format. I love attacks like this though, because if Pokemon ever does decide to support a limited format like draft or something like that, then Monkey Do will be a powerful type of attack. Lycanroc, this is a pretty sick card, has 120 hit points, and for 1 fighting and 1 colorless energy, it does 240 damage and 80 less damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So that's interesting. If your opponent's Pokemon has 1 energy attached to it, you're doing 160 damage. If your opponent's Pokemon has 2 energy attached to it, you're doing like 80 damage. I mean, so it decreases rapidly. But if you can attack a Pokemon that doesn't have any energy attached to it, you're doing 240 damage for just 2 energy. So this card could see play in Gym Leader Challenge format. Since 2 damage for 240 is nuts, you would just be limited to the Pokemon that you can actively damage. Lycanroc is going to be best paired with Gust type effects like Boss's Orders or Guzma to target down a Pokemon on your opponent's bench that doesn't have any energy attached to it. A lot of times, support Pokemon like Rillaboom or Venusaur might not have any energy attached to them, or Pokemon like Blastoise, right? So Lycanroc could one-hit KO those targets for just 2 energy. However, Lycanroc is a situational attacker, and it is tough accelerating energy onto Pokemon that can't just deal with whatever threat is in front of them, right? If your opponent's Pokemon has multiple energy attached to it, Lycanroc might be doing 0 damage, which is not exactly what you want to do. Brandon is a new supporter card that reads you can only play this card when it is the last card in your hand, and you get to draw a card for each benched Pokemon in play. So Brandon can draw up to 10 cards if both you and your opponent have a full bench. But you can only play Brandon if it's the last card in your hand. I don't think that potentially filling your hand to 10 cards is worth the drawback of such a restrictive clause. Hisuian Arcanine V has the Guardian Gallop ability, which reads as often as you like during your turn, you may move a fighting energy from one of your Pokemon to this Pokemon. So you can accelerate fighting energy into play and then move them all to Hisuian Arcanine V at will. And then it's got the Rock Bullet attack for 4 colorless energy. It does 90 damage plus 30 more damage for each fighting energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you have 4 fighting energy, that is 120 plus 90, 210. That's just not a very strong attack for 4 fighting energy. 210 damage is not nearly enough. This is a crazy card. Sigelif has got the full alert attack for 1 colorless energy, allows you to search your deck for 1 basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. But if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon V, search for up to 5 basic Pokemon instead. So Sigelif can completely set up your deck if your opponent's active is a Pokemon V. Again, kind of interesting that this card is coming out at the tail end of the Sword and Shield block, as Pokemon V are going to become less and less popular as Pokemon EX start to come into standard formats. It's still a powerful effect, but it is limited in its usefulness. Worker is another new draw 3 supporter variant that allows you to also discard a stadium in play. This can be good for decks that want to remove Path to the Peak from play to allow their Pokemon with rule boxes to use abilities again. If you want to draw a supporter that also bumps Path, Worker is your girl. Primeval Altar is a new stadium card that allows each player to look at the top card of their deck during their turn, and they may discard that card. I do think that Primeval Altar is an interesting card that allows you to churn through your deck and ship cards to the discard pile that you want there. Thinning your deck is almost always good, and I think that Primeval Altar could fulfill that job in certain types of decks. Absolutely love this new Luxray card. It's got the ability Explosive Start, which reads if this Pokemon is in your hand when you're setting up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon. It's got the Seeking Fangs attack for 1 colorless energy that allows you to search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This Luxray immediately calls to mind Talonflame from Steam Siege with the Gale Wings ability that allows you to start the Talonflame if it's in your opening hand. The Luxray also has a very useful setup attack, just like Talonflame with its Arrow Blitz, which allowed you to search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. Luxray does a little bit more damage, but is limited to finding trainer cards instead of any card that you want. Luxray also has free retreat, just like Talonflame did. So Luxray is an incredible starter, but you have to open it in your hand in order to start it. Some decks did rely on Talonflame to set up their strategy, like Cody Walensky's second place World Championship Greninja Break deck from the 2016 World Championships. So this strategy is not necessarily all gimmick. Some decks could use Luxray even in standard format to set up their board. Searching for 2 trainer cards is quite good, and since Luxray has free retreat, it can easily pivot into whatever Pokemon you want, and since Seeking Fangs costs colorless energy, you can use any type of energy to fulfill Luxray's attack cost. Luxray could also see play in Gym Leader Challenge formats, though it is tough to pull off the explosive start since Gym Leader Challenge is a singleton format. You'd have to get a little lucky to open your Luxray, but thankfully there are some really good Shinx and Luxio cards in Gym Leader Challenge format that could make playing this Luxray worth it, since you could evolve into Luxray or open it in order to get it into play. Now, speaking of gimmicks, Quadstone reads like quite the gimmick. It is an item card that may be played 4 of at a time. If you only played 1, you heal 10 damage from your active Pokemon. But if you played all 4 Quadstone at the same time, you heal all damage from all of your Pokemon in play. It's an incredible effect, but it requires that you find all 4 of your Quadstone, even if they're in the prizes or if you have to discard 1. You have to find all 4 Quadstone and play them at the same time, which is not an easy thing to do. Thankfully, the card does have a one-off effect, healing 10 damage. I think the Quadstone is a meme. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very good, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some sort of deck that can break Quadstone. I just don't expect there to be one. Chestnut V has got the point and shoot ability. If your active Chestnut V is damaged by an opponent's attack, put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, and then touchdown! For 2 grass and a colorless, does 130 damage and heal 30 damage from this Pokemon. Chestnut V is not very good. Candace is a new supporter card that allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of water-type Pokemon and water energy cards you find there and put them into your hand. Candace might see play in water-type Gym Leader Challenge decks, but I don't expect Candace to see a lot of play in standard format, since there are other supporter cards like Irida, which are kind of just better, guaranteeing you any water-type Pokemon you want and any item card you want out of your deck. But in Gym Leader Challenge format, you can only play 1 copy of Irida in your deck, so Candace could find a home there. Ahriados has the ability Blighting Web, which reads your opponent's Pokemon V-Star's attacks cost 1 colorless more. You can't apply more than 1 Blighting Web ability at a time. This is an interesting ability, but you do have to evolve Spinarak into Ahriados in order to get this ability online. This is the kind of ability that would be very strong on a basic Pokemon, since it could easily be slid into any deck and disrupt Pokemon V-Star. But since you do have to evolve in order to get Ahriados into play, I don't expect this card to see play in a lot of decks. New Sleepy Incineroar could be good in Gym Leader Challenge format. It's got 170 hit points, which is a fantastic amount of HP for a Stage 2 Pokemon, and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Secret Move, for 1 fire energy, allows you to choose an attack from one of this Pokemon's previous evolutions and use it as this attack. And then Flare Shot for 2 fire energy does 180 damage, and you discard all energy from this Pokemon. If you've got the Pokemon Go Charizard set up at the same time as Incineroar, you can use Flare Shot for just 1 fire energy, and 1 fire energy to deal 180 damage is really good. So I think that Incineroar certainly has some potential. Torracat has got the Hang in There Claws attack for 2 fire energy. It does 40 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, it is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10. It's really interesting since Incineroar can use that attack, so you could make your Incineroar essentially invincible for a turn if you only need to deal 40 damage, which is pretty cool. And then Litten has the Reprisal attack for 2 fire energy. It does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So if you're following along, you could do this funny little wombo combo where you secret move and copy Hang in There Claws to deal 40 damage, and then if your opponent tries to knock out the Incineroar hangs on with 10 hit points, and then you can strike back with a full-powered Reprisal, which will deal 20 damage times 160 to deal 320 damage for just 1 fire energy. So kind of a gimmick, but also pretty cool. And Incineroar does do 180 damage for 2 fire energy, which is just good damage output anyway. So I think that Incineroar could be valuable in Fire-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. All right, finally, we are on to the fun stuff. Regidrago VStar is potentially the most hyped new Pokemon out of Silver Tempest. It's got a really cool attack, Draconic Visions for 2 grass and a fire energy. You get to choose an attack from a dragon-type Pokemon in your discard pile and use it as this attack. Its V-Star Power Star Legacy is an ability that you can use during your turn. You discard the top 7 cards of your deck and then put up to 2 cards from your discard pile into your hand. So people are talking about the potential for a dragon-type toolbox deck that features Regidrago VStar as the main attacker. Draconic Visions can allow you to use any of your dragon-type Pokemon's attacks on Regidrago VStar. So even if you have a cool Stage 2 dragon-type Pokemon, like Dragonite, and you want to use its Energy Hurricane attack, you don't have to actually get Dragonite into play. Hooray! Who likes evolving anyways? You could use Energy Hurricane with your Regidrago VStar using its Draconic Visions attack. And that's the implied strategy of this deck, right? Dragonite's Energy Hurricane does 180 damage, and you get to search your deck for up to 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So once you get 3 energy onto your first Regidrago VStar, then you can use Draconic Visions to copy Dragonite's Energy Hurricane, and once you have enough energy in play with Energy Hurricane, then the whole deck opens up. You can really use any Dragon-type Pokemon's attack from there. And wouldn't you know it, there are a lot of really powerful Dragon-type Pokemon's attacks that you can copy with Regidrago VStar. You've got Giratina VStar's Lost Impact, which can do 280 damage and one-hit KO just about any opposing Pokemon VStar. One of the biggest downsides of Giratina VStar's Lost Impact attack was that it wasn't very good for knocking out single prize Pokemon. You really only wanted to use Lost Impact if you were knocking out a big target. Regidrago can fix that by only using Lost Impact when you want to knock out something big. If you want to knock out something small, you can use a more reasonable attack. If you want to prevent damage with Regidrago VStar, you can use Goodra VStar's Rolling Iron, which does 200 damage and makes it so you take 80 less damage during your opponent's next turn. This would be the ideal attack for knocking out single prize Pokemon, as it also helps you to sustain hits the following turn and doesn't waste your own energy. If you want your Regidrago VStar to be able to target down any Pokemon on your opponent's side of the board, you can copy Garchomp V's Sonic Strike attack, which requires that you discard 3 energy from this Pokemon, but it does 220 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon in play. So that's really good, since Regidrago VStar can use Sonic Strike for just 3 energy instead of 4. Similarly, Regidrago VStar can also easily copy Flygon V's Draconic Impulse attack, which does 160 damage plus 160 more damage. If the defending Pokemon is a Pokemon VMax, you do have to discard 3 energy from this Pokemon in order to use that attack, but giving your Regidrago VStar the ability to instantly KO a Pokemon VMax is just really powerful. So as you can see, there are a lot of really strong Dragon-type Pokemon attacks for Regidrago VStar to copy, and Regidrago VStar's VStar Power Star Legacy plays perfectly into this strategy, allowing you to discard the top 7 cards of your deck, which is of course very destructive, but can help you to get those Dragon-type Pokemon into the discard pile early so that you can start copying attacks. And then you do get to get 2 cards from your discard pile and put them back into your hand, which is good because if you accidentally discard something that you didn't want to discard with Star Legacy, you can get those cards back. Or if there's a card from earlier in the game that you discarded, you can get that card back with Star Legacy as well. So I think that Regidrago VStar is going to be a really powerful new deck with this toolbox strategy, allowing you to accommodate for any situation that you might encounter in a game of Pokemon cards. Regidrago V has the Celestial Roar attack for 1 colorless energy. You discard the top 3 cards of your deck and attach any energy you discarded this way to this Pokemon. This can help you to power up Regidrago VStar, and it can also help you to get Dragon-type Pokemon into the discard pile. Dragon Laser for 2 grass and a fire energy does 130 damage and 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This attack could be copied by Draconic Visions if you want to spread damage onto your opponent's Pokemon. Finally, we have got a Regileki card that has free retreat. It's about time. The fastest Pokemon in the known universe up until this point had some pretty hefty retreat costs, okay? I mean, like, ridiculous stuff, like retreat costs of 2 and even 3. Finally, we've got a Regileki card that has the free retreats that we come to expect from such a speedy Pokemon. Regileki VMax has 310 hit points, an awesome ability, and an attack. Its ability Transistor reads your Lightning-type basic Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, and it stacks. So if you have 1 Regileki VMax in play, you're doing plus 30 damage with your basic lightning Pokemon. 2, you're doing plus 60. 4, you're doing plus 120. Let's say you have 2 Regileki VMax in play, and you want to attack with the strongest basic lightning type Pokemon. Yes, Vicavolt V is a basic lightning type Pokemon that doesn't do enough damage, but has a strong attack, Paralyzing Bolt. For a lightning and a colorless energy, it does 50 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. If only there was a way to make it so that I could do more like 100 damage. With Regileki VMax, you can do just that. Get a couple of Regileki VMax in play. You're going to be boosting your Vicavolt V's Paralyzing Bolt attack to new heights. If you have 3 Regileki VMax in play, you're doing plus 90 damage. That is a 140 damage Paralyzing Bolt with a Choice Belt. That's a 170 damage item lock that can 2-hit KO Pokemon VMax while keeping your opponent item locked. And what's even better is that Vicavolt V also has the Super Zap Cannon attack for 2 lightning and a colorless, does base 190 if you have 3 Regileki VMax online. That's plus 90 damage. You're doing 280 damage with your Vicavolt V, which can 1-hit KO opposing Pokemon V-Star. Vicavolt V will be rotating out of standard format, you know, eventually. Okay, it's in Darkness Ablaze, but I do think that Regileki VMax and its Transistor ability is quite strong and will breathe new life into basic lightning type Pokemon. Regileki VMax also has the Max Rumbling attack for a lightning and 2 colorless energy, which does 220 damage, with the drawback being this Pokemon cannot attack during your next turn. Not a very bad drawback considering that Regileki VMax can retreat for free and remove that clause from Regileki. Lance is a new supporter card that is going to be incredible in Dragon-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. It could also see play in Reggie Drago Toolbox-style decks, but I think that the real story of this card is going to be for Gym Leader Challenge decks. It allows you to search your deck for up to 3 Dragon-type Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. These types of supporters see a lot of play in Gym Leader Challenge format, since it's a slower, more methodical format that doesn't require that you are 1-hit KOing anything on the second turn of the game like Standard. Standard is such a fast-paced format that setup supporters like this are usually just relegated to the bulk box. But in Gym Leader Challenge format, searching your deck for Pokemon and putting them into your hand is exactly the kind of thing that you want to do, since your deck is a singleton deck. Being able to search out evolutions as well as basic type Pokemon means that Lance is going to be good not only on the first turn of the game going second, but also later on in the match when you're looking for your evolution Pokemon. Terrakion has the Cavern Tackle attack, and I think that Terrakion is the strongest of these 4, what do you want to call them, pony Pokemon? Terrakion's Cavern Tackle does 120 damage for 2 fighting and a colorless, and you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. You can't use this attack if any of your Pokemon used Cavern Tackle during your last turn. Terrakion's Cavern Tackle attack is really strong, as it makes Terrakion invincible for a turn. This is very good in Gym Leader Challenge format, where the tempo of a match really matters and your opponent isn't always going to have the gust option to take a knockout around Terrakion. The downside is, of course, that you can only attack every other turn with Terrakion, since this Terrakion doesn't have any other attacks to use. It just has Cavern Tackle. So you're going to have to switch this Terrakion to the bench or retreat it in order to attack with something else after you use Cavern Tackle. Cavern Tackle's damage output is also a little bit on the low side. You really want to hit 130 damage as the magic number in Gym Leader Challenge format. As you can see, a lot of Pokemon have 130 hit points in Gym Leader Challenge formats, or, 120. But 130 is definitely the number you want to hit. A lot of the best attackers have 130 hit points. So you're going to need a damage mod like Fighting Fury Belt or Muscle Band or Strong Energy in order to get Terrakion's Cavern Tackle up to that magic 130 number, which is not tough. You can use Guzma and Hala to search out those cards and boost Terrakion's damage output, which is not too much to ask. I like Terrakion, and I think it could be useful in just the right fighting type Gym Leader Challenge deck. Lugia VStar. I know I said Reggie Drago VStar was the most hyped VStar out of this upcoming Silver Tempest set, but Lugia VStar has got a little something to say about that, because Lugia VStar is also really cool and has a lot of potential. It's got 280 hit points, a powerful attack, and an awesome ability. Its attack Storm Dive does 220 damage, and you may discard a stadium in play. Its V-Star power is the Star Assembly ability, which allows you to put up to 2 colorless Pokemon that don't have a rule box from your discard pile straight onto your bench. So even if it's a stage 2 Pokemon, or even if it's a fossil Pokemon or whatever, you can put that colorless Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box straight from your discard pile onto your bench. And the Lugia is very clearly supposed to be paired with the new Archeops. Archeops is a colorless type stage 2 Pokemon with the ability Primal Turbo, which reads, once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 special energy and attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. This is a very powerful ability, and Archeops is such a good card that it could be good in Standard format and Gym Leader Challenge. As in Gym Leader Challenge, accelerating energy into play is always good. Now, what's tough about Archeops is that it has to evolve from unidentified fossil. So fans of Porygon Z and its crazy code ability will probably like the fact that they don't have to find a fossil in order to evolve Archeops into play. But searching energy out of your deck and attaching them to your Pokemon is way better than accelerating special energy out of your hand like Porygon Z does. So there's certainly a decision to be made for colorless type Gym Leader Challenge players. Now in Standard format, Archeops ain't gonna be evolving from unidentified fossil, okay? Because we don't evolve anymore in Standard format. Evolving is way like 2018. That's when we used to evolve back then. We don't evolve anymore. Now we just get our Pokemon into play. Okay, so Lugia VStar is going to be able to instantly spring those Archeops into play. And you can use Archeops' Primal Turbo ability to accelerate energy onto your Lugia VStar. This is kind of the deck list in a can type decks we've been getting from the Pokemon Company lately. It's just kind of like hand packaged and just given to you on a silver platter, a silver Tempest platter, right? So we can accelerate special energy onto our Lugia VStar. Now, 220 damage for 4 energy isn't very good, but when you consider the fact that you can accelerate powerful colorless energy onto your Lugia, then that 220 damage is starting to look a lot more like 300 damage, right? If you have 4 powerful colorless energy on your Lugia, then you can one-hit KO opposing Pokemon VStar, which is pretty good. Now, eventually, powerful colorless energy is going to rotate out of Standard. Yes, I know. But we are going to have a little while these cards do coexist in Standard. And for a time, Lugia VStar could be quite a powerful attacker. Even if you have just 2 powerful colorless energy attached to Lugia, that's 260 damage with a Choice Belt. That's 290 damage, right? Which is enough to one-hit KO opposing Pokemon VStar. You can play a bunch of different colorless energy in your Lugia deck, which is very good. You've got Gift Energy, you've got Capture Energy, a lot of really strong special energy that'll pair well with your powerful colorless energy. And the Archeops doesn't have to accelerate onto Lugia. You could play single prize attackers like the Snorlax from Lost Origin, which can also get in there for some big damage with its thumping Snore attack. Imagine, a double turbo energy or a twin energy, a powerful colorless energy, thumping Snore. Great single prize attacker that you could play alongside Lugia to, formulate a cohesive strategy. Lugia V has the Read the Winds attack for 1 colorless energy. That requires that you discard a card from your hand, but if you do, you get to draw 3 cards. That's a pretty good attack to have on a basic Pokemon V, since if you're going second, you can increase your hand size and maybe get ready for a big turn 2. You can also discard your Archeops, right? Which then you can spring into play with Star Assembly on the following turn. Arrow Dive does 130 damage for 4 colorless energy, and you may discard a Stadium in play. Literally just a weaker version of Storm Dive on Lugia VStar. Unknown VStar has 250 hit points, which would be the lowest amount of HP on a Pokemon VStar if it wasn't for the incredibly weak Alolan Vulpix VStar. Unknown VStar has 2 attacks, a regular attack and a VStar power attack. Its first attack, Tri-Power, for 1 Psychic Energy, you flip 3 coins. This attack does 70 damage for each heads. That is not a very good attack. Its V-Star Power, Star Cipher, for 3 colorless energy, reads until this Pokemon leaves play. It gains an ability that has the effect all of your opponent's Pokemon's weakness is Psychic. That's an interesting kind of effect, right? It makes it so that you can hit your opponent's Pokemon for weakness if you're playing a Psychic-oriented deck, but this V-Star Power only stays online so long as Unknown V-Star does not get knocked out, and it only has 250 hit points, and you have to get 3 energy on this thing. This ability stinks. This V-Star Power is not very good, because we all know how hyper-aggressive standard format is. Like, dude, it is a very aggressive format. You think Palkia V-Star cares about this? Absolutely not. Palkia V-Star will just use Double Cross Switcher and knock it out. So what does it care, dude? Is this thing, no, you think Giratina V-Star cares? Like, no, Giratina V-Star will just Lost Impact this thing and just blow it to smithereens. Yes, nothing about changing your opponent's weakness matters, especially when this card has to stay in play. It's like the same thing as the Aerodactyl V-Star, right? Which has a cool V-Star power attack, right? That turns off abilities so long as the Aerodactyl stays in play. But there's no guarantee that that Aerodactyl is going to stay in play, especially since it has to be in the active to use this attack in the first place. So it's going to be in the line of fire for at least a turn. And your opponent has an opportunity to knock it out and negate the effect completely. Now, I am really excited about Silver Tempest. I think that Lugia V-Star and Regidrago V-Star are both very interesting cards that are going to promote some deck building creativity. But what I'm most excited about is the fact that my Mew VMax deck gets even more broken thanks to these new Pokemon tool cards that give your Pokemon V a bonus V-Star power. Grove Tablet is going straight into my Mew VMax deck. It is a tool card that gives the Pokemon V it's attached to the Star Alchemy V-Star Power ability, which reads, during your turn, you may search your deck for any one card and put it into your hand. That's right, my Mew VMaxes can get whatever card they want and put that card into my hand. Let's go. Absolutely nuts. Mew VMax is a deck that notoriously doesn't use V-Star powers, right? It only plays Pokemon V and Pokemon VMax, no V-Star. So Grove Tablet is going to give that archetype and other archetypes like it the potential to use V-Star powers. And I think that Grove Tablet is going to be played in every single Mew VMax deck. I think that Mew VMax is going to be one of the VMax decks that remains relevant into the Scarlet and Violet era because of its flexibility and because of its just raw power. Something else that's really interesting to note is that Grove Tablet and the V-Star power that it gives is not shut down by Path to the Peak. Now, this ruling might be surprising to some, as Path to the Peak reads, Pokemon with the rule box in play, both yours and your opponent's, have no abilities, which seems like it would make it so that the Pokemon V that has Grove Tablet attached would have no ability and not be able to use Star Alchemy. But that is not the way that the ruling has been made. According to the official sources, Path to the Peak only makes it so that the Pokemon with the rule box has no abilities. And that remains true even if Grove Tablet is attached to a Mew VMax or something like that with a Path to the Peak in play, because Mew VMax still has no ability. And Mew VMax never has the ability. The Pokemon tool card has the ability. So with Mew VMax, you can still use the Grove Tablet VStar power, which is an ability, since the ability is on the tool and not on the Pokemon, and Path to the Peak only stops abilities that are directly on the Pokemon. So that makes the Grove Tablet even stronger in the Mew VMax deck, because not only can Grove Tablet go and get you whatever card you want out of your deck, it can also be used to get you a counter stadium to get you out of Path to the Peak lock. So Grove Tablet is going to be a mainstay in Mew VMax decks and a really powerful card. Earth Tablet is another Pokemon tool card that gives the Pokemon V it's attached to a bonus V-Star power. The Star Gravity attack costs 3 colorless energy, and you put damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon V until they have 100 hit points remaining. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it gets around Manaphy, which is interesting since it places damage counters. It doesn't deal damage directly. And it sets up all of your opponent's Pokemon V for knockout at the same time. It's a little bit of a situational card, but I think that Earth Tablet could see play in just the right deck. Yeah, you could play Earth Tablet in like Rapid Strike Urshifu VMax or something, right? Imagine, that's pretty crazy, right? Imagine playing Earth Tablet in your Rapid Strike Urshifu VMax deck. You can use Earth Tablet to Star Gravity all of your opponent's Pokemon V, and then Rapid Flow them the following turn and knock them out. Pretty cool combo. Earth Tablet could definitely see play in spread type decks. Silver Tempest coming out November 11th. Thank you all so much for joining me for this review. Let me know in the comments below, or if you're live here on Twitch, which cards you are looking forward to the most from Silver Tempest. Which decks are you most excited to build? Which cards are you most looking forward to putting in your Gym Leader Challenge deck? If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and ring that bell. Also, make sure to check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/TrickyGym, where I stream live Pokemon trading card game content, just like the stuff you watched here, every single weekday. If you're not super into Twitch, don't worry about it. I've got a YouTube channel, Tricky Gym VODs, where I upload my Twitch streams in their entirety so that you can check them out anytime. Y'all take it easy and have a good one. See ya.